One of my most vivid memories as a kid was discovering the existence of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Never before did my tiny brain even fathom the possibility of my favorite Nintendo characters interacting in a game. It felt like a dream. I'd only ever seen commercials of the game, and so when I finally got the chance to play for the first time and choose my characters in the character select screen, I couldn't choose who to play first. Mario? DK? Link? Kirby? Marth? Who the f is Marth? Ice Climbers, Captain Falcon, who were these guys? I remember some of my friends being shocked at me not knowing who some of these characters were, and as more characters got introduced throughout Smash's lifespan, the more people I got to disappoint. In this video, I decided to see how unreasonable is it really that I don't know some members of the Smash roster. So I'm gonna go ahead and rank every single characters by how famous and recognizable they are. Remember, we have to assume all data is based on if you picked up Smash Ultimate right now, having never heard of the game before in your life, and so you are seeing who is part of the roster for the first time. And no, I swear there's actually people like this, f***ing losers, am I right? For a majority of the cast, I'm primarily going off how many games they sold. Keep in mind, not all characters are created equal. Some characters have much more than a game or two going on in shows or movies that help it out. Others would never have seen the light of mainstream if it weren't for Smash. Also, for many characters, I will be going by individual games as opposed to total franchise sales. Like some characters, for instance, are really only known for their role in one game as opposed to the whole franchise. You know, Rosalina and Luma play a key role in Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. You know, she's part of the Mario franchise at this point, but she really is only the star of the game in these two entries, so I'm only going to count these two for her. However, for characters like Mario or Sonic, who are essentially the mascot of their companies and star in every game of their franchise and are literally in the title of their series, I'm gonna be counting their franchise sales as a whole. Alright, so here we go. First, we're gonna start with the bottom tier characters, the games that would likely have died a long time ago if not for Smash. All these games sold under 1 million copies. First on the list is Roy, whose debut game Binding Blade only sold 346,000 copies. Fun fact, Roy was released in Melee before he debuted in his first game, and so there was a moment where you really only knew Roy from Smash. Next we got Lucas, whose game Mother 3 sold only 368,000 copies, as it was only released in Japan, as Reggie is reminded every single day.
Do you think that the West will ever be able to receive Mother 3?
Ness is next, with Earthbound having sold 440,000 copies in its lifetime. So there we have it. So far we can see the PK boys were probably entirely unheard of to a strong majority of people who've played Smash. At this point, I'm positive more people have been hit by PK Fire before they hear about Mother 3 for the first time. Unsurprisingly, I had never heard of any of these characters before Smash. Next on the tier list, we got games who could actually sell 1 million copies, but not much more than that. Very unlikely you have heard of these characters unless you're part of that cult following that loves them. Ike's debut game under Fire Emblem Path of Radiance sold 536,000 copies. Technically, he got Radiant Dawn with him as the main character, and it's a direct sequel, so we'll count it, adding up to 1.038 million sales total. Next we got Dark Pit, whose only game, Kid Icarus Uprising, sold 1.35 million copies. Richter first appeared in Rondo of Blood, which actually can't be pinpointed how many copies were sold, but its direct port to the Super Nintendo called Dracula X only sold 90,000 units. However, its direct sequel, Symphony on the Night, sold 1.27 million units, adding up to a total of 1.36 million copies sold. Honestly, the first number seems wrong because 90k is ridiculously low, but Konami straight up doesn't release these numbers, and so it's really hard to find out exactly where the Belmonts should be on this list. Then we got Ice Climbers from the hit game Ice Climbers. Wasn't that much of a hit actually, sold 1.5 million copies. Next we got Bayonetta. Honestly, this one I was surprised people were excited for a Smash DLC because I could have lived my whole life not knowing who Bayonetta was. But unfortunately, now I do. The Bayonetta series as a whole has sold approximately 1.75 million copies. Then we got Marth, who sold 329,000 copies in this first game, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and Blade of Light, as well as its sequel, Mystery of the Emblem, that sold 776,000 copies. This, along with the remakes of those games, add up to 1.96 million copies total. Next is the most recent DLC at the moment, Pyra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which sold 2.05 million copies. Lucina, Robin, and Chrom are all from the same game, Fire Emblem Awakening, which sold 2.31 million copies. And the last character we have in this tier is one of the most recent DLCs, Min Min, whose legendary Switch game ARMS sold 2.38 million copies. At this point, we have over half of all the Fire Emblem characters represented in these two bottom tiers. Say what you want about Fire Emblem, but they might be a bit overrepresented in Smash Bros. In this list, I only kinda sorta knew the existence of Min Min before Smash. Like, I knew of ARMS, I'm pretty sure I saw Min Min before, but I definitely wouldn't be able to tell you her name, so we'll count it as half a point. And so that is it for this tier. Now we move on to games that have sold over 2.5 million copies. The games that niche gamers will probably be able to identify. Olimar's most popular game is his debut game, Pikmin, which sold 1.6 million copies. Pikmin 2 also stars Olimar as a main character, leaving him at 2.72 million copies sold. Next we got Shulk, whose game sold 2.99 million copies total under Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I'm counting sales from both iterations just because it's the same game, just a different system, you know, so good job, Shulk. It counts. After that we got Corrin, who sold 3 million copies with Fire Emblem Fates. Byleth is next, whose game Fire Emblem Three Houses sold 3.02 million copies. This is actually the last Fire Emblem game on the list, 3 tiers in. Sakurai loves his Fire Emblem, fellas, what can I say? Next we got Pit and Palutena, which both are in Kid Icarus, which sold 1.7 million copies. Being the stars in Kid Icarus Uprising as well, that leaves them both at 3.05 million copies sold. And the last character on this list is Little Mac, whose most popular game, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, sold 3 million copies. This, along with the Wii's Punch-Out, put him at 4.7 million copies sold. Here, I could say I knew of Byleth's existence, as well as Little Mac, probably. No one that I could tell you off the top of my head, and definitely no games that I've played. Next, we got the games that have sold at least 5 million copies. Here we're starting to break through a little bit, where your average gamer will likely have heard of these games. Dark Samus is featured for the first time in the Metroid series' most popular game, Metroid Prime, which sold 2.8 million copies. In this game, Dark Samus had a much smaller role than Ridley and Samus. In fact, it was literally in the final cutscene that Dark Samus was featured. However, because this was likely very epic at the time, I guess we'll let it slide and give Dark Samus a total 5.31 million copies among the games that she's been in. Next we got Captain Falcon, who sold 5.85 million copies under the F-Zero franchise. This one is interesting to me because Falcon is basically the face of Smash Bros at this point. Like, Falcon Punch is probably more iconic than a solid half of all the characters in Smash, but literally only exists because of his addition to Smash, which is kind of wild. Next we have Chocka from Persona 5, which sold 4.6 million copies between Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. This, with the new spin-off Persona 5 Strikers, leaves it at 6 million copies sold with Big J. You better watch out though, fellas, because when Persona 5 Racing finally comes out, whole new ballgame. Next we got Hiro, who is tough to rank. Basic Hero sold 4.3 million copies in Dragon Quest XI. Goku Hero sold the most of the heroes in Dragon Quest III at 6.4 million copies. Aquaman Hero sold 5.93 million copies through Dragon Quest IV. And finally, Pet Owner Hero sold 5.8 million copies under Dragon Quest VII. Now, I feel like since they aren't all the same character, it wouldn't be fair to count them all as one, right? Like, it's the same series, but different characters. And so I'm gonna place Hiro here as a whole under Goku Hero, who had the most at 6.4 million copies. Banjo and Kazooie is next, with 3.65 million copies sold in their game, Banjo Kazooie, a top 10 selling game on the N64. Along with Banjo-Tooie, this puts them at 6.65 million sales. Next we got Sheik, who got 7.6 million sales in Ocarina of Time, in what is essentially her only main appearance outside Smash. And in this last tier we got Toon Link. His game Wind Waker got 6.77 million sales, being more popular than his other appearance in Four Swords, which only got 930k sales, for a total of 7.7 million sales. In this tier, I've played Wind Waker and Persona 5, but I only knew of their existence after Smash. Before Smash, I didn't know anyone on this list. And now that's it for this tier. We move on to the 10 million mark, the big boys who have reached the 8 figures mark. This group has a solid fan base. You likely have a friend who will probably love some of these games and would be disappointed in you for not recognizing the characters. First on the list we got Dr. Mario, whose game Dr. Mario sold over 10 million copies, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think it did so well. Next on the list are 3 characters, Fox, Falco, and Wolf, all under Star Fox series. Star Fox 64 sold 4 million copies, and honestly I was surprised this game featured Wolf. I thought it was just Falco and Fox. and peppy hair.
Do a barrel roll!
The series as a whole has sold 11.9 million copies, with each character starring in every game. After that is Wario, who is a character that probably got the most recent boost in mainstream media. Wario's most popular game is Wario Land Super Mario Land 3, which sold 5.19 million copies. The total franchise sales for the series is at 13.3 million copies sold. Next we have Youngling, who dons his Ocarina of Time skin. Ocarina of Time specifically sold 13.82 million copies. Great game. Or so I've heard, I've never played. Here we have Ridley, which is represented as the iconic villain of Samus in the Metroid series, with over 15.33 million copies he starred in, which is every Metroid game ever except for 3, which is why Samus isn't tagged along here with him. And now we have our first Pokemon on the list, which makes it the perfect time to include the Pokemon clause. While some Pokemon have starred in every game since Gen 1, the ones that haven't, I'm only counting their debut games for sales since they become minor in the next games. With that being said, the worst performing Pokemon game sales-wise in Smash is Greninja's game, Pokemon X and Y, which sold 16.5 million copies. As far as Pokemon go, I think Greninja's a pretty popular one, especially since Ash has one, so I think he could be a bit more popular than he is here. However, it'll complicate things if I make up a metric for that, so yeah, we'll just leave him here. Next is Inkling, whose most popular game, Splatoon 2, sold 12.2 million copies. Wow, that's a lot more than I thought. In total, the series sold 17.16 million copies. Next we got Daisy. Daisy's first appearance was in Super Mario Land, which sold 18 million copies, and is her biggest and only main appearance that's just not a random playable character. Let's go Daisy. Here we got Zero Suit Samus. She's technically in every Metroid game, but for most games, you only really see her briefly during game overs or for a special cutscene at best. But I feel like whenever someone sees Samus for the first time, everyone's like, yo, you know she's a girl? And so it's like hard to know ZSS without knowing Samus. So I'll put her here behind Samus. Samus stars in every single Metroid game in the series ever, with the franchise as a whole having sold a total of 18.15 million copies total. But did you know she's a girl though? Cloud and Sephiroth are next with 18.2 million sales for Final Fantasy VII, which includes the remake. These guys are super iconic. Supposedly, I don't know, I've never heard of them before Smash.
Man, long hair. Anime man?
Next we got Rosalina and Luma. I mentioned in the beginning I'd only talk about Galaxy 1 and 2, which combined sold 20.2 million copies. And now the last character in this tier, who is ironically one of the most forgettable fighters in Smash. Lucario comes in with 24.73 million copies sold in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Mans is the star of his own movie as well, so yeah, Lucario got a lot of rep, and so I feel that much worse for the Pokemon fans who came in expecting a badass and discovered raw cheese instead. So for this tier, I knew half, I knew Wario, Ridley kinda, Greninja, Inkling, Daisy, Samus, and Lucario. Go me, baby, we're getting there. Next, we have reached the 25 million copies sold tier. From this point forward, the average gamer has heard of every character on this list. First on the list is Incineroar, the newest Pokemon to be added to Smash. Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon sold 25.09 million copies, just making it onto this tier. This is the third best-selling Pokemon title of all time, so it definitely makes sense we got a rep here. Next on the list is Duck Hunt from the game Duck Hunt, which sold 28.3 million copies. Then we got the king himself, K. Rool, debuted in Donkey Kong Country, which sold 13.3 million copies. Adding this to all the other games he's the main antagonist in adds up to 29 million copies. Next we got Meta Knight, whose most popular appearance is in Kirby Star Allies, which sold 13.02 million copies. The same as Fire Emblem Three Houses actually. However, Meta Knight has been at this point in literally every Kirby game since debuting, except for one, so I find it fair to count up all these game sales as an icon of the series. This leaves him as a total of 29.93 sales. 29.93 million sales, shoot. After that is another Pokemon, Pichu, who being part of the Gen 2 squad is in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, which sold 29.5 million copies. Beautiful choice, by the way. Like, imagine the Gen 2 rep we got was like Chikorita or something. Holy shit, we got lucky, fellas. Next we have Kirby and King Dedede, who have starred in every Kirby game, with the franchise having sold 36.2 million copies total. Both of these guys are in Kirby's most popular game, Kirby's Dream Land, which sold 5.1 million copies. Them and Meta Knight also had their own show on 4Kids, by the way. Next is Bowser Jr., who is the main antagonist along with his siblings in New Super Mario Bros. Wii at 30.3 million copies sold. Now it makes sense that they have all these kids in Smash, like damn, this sold a lot of copies. Jr. himself though gets that Mario Sunshine bonus of 6.28 million, with the game being his debut, leaving him at 36.9 million total. Overall, Jr. has definitely become a staple in the series, but I wouldn't say is as recognizable to the average Joe as the other Mario characters. Now we have Game & Watch, which sold 43.4 million units in its entirety. The last game created in the series was released in 1991, so if you've played a Game & Watch game, then this is a reminder to take your medication. Here we have the character your mom is most likely to know. Wii Fit Trainer was there every day on that fitness journey on the Wii Fit, which sold 43.9 million copies. 9th best-selling game of all time, by the way. Next we got Ken and Ryu, who have both appeared in every Street Fighter game. This series has had its own movies, crossover, freaking Ryu was in Wreck-It Ralph. Because both of these guys appear in literally every game, they qualify for the Big Money Series boost at 46 million franchise sales total. Their most popular game, by the way, was Street Fighter 2. Next we got Yoshi, who in his franchise has sold 25.5 million copies. However, the dinosaur actually debuted in Super Mario World that sold 20.6 million copies, and while you could argue Yoshi's Island is the first true Yoshi game, he's on the cover of Super Mario World, so I'll give him the glory of getting a fat 46.15 million copies sold. Woohoo! Here we got the pinnacle of Pokemon sales, with Jigglypuff being featured in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. This game sold 47.52 million copies, and though Jiggs is a really popular Pokemon overall, I'd say isn't quite on the same level as the other 3 Gen 1 Pokemons we got left. Isabelle is the last one on this list with 49.52 million sales in every Animal Crossing game since her debut in New Leaf. I always thought Isabelle was in every Animal Crossing game, and so here I am, making fixes and post-recording. Dang it, Isabelle. In this tier, I knew every character except for Game & Watch and King K. Rool, and Isabelle. Not bad. Come on, give me props here. Next, we got the 50 million club. The characters you should probably know regardless if you played their game or not. Although it's called Donkey Kong Country and not Diddy Kong Country, Diddy stars in every DK Country game, which has sold 52.5 million copies total. Next we got Snake, the mascot behind the Metal Gear series and one of the most iconic video game characters ever. His most popular game is Metal Gear Solid 2, which sold 7.4 million copies. However, the Metal Gear franchise as a whole has sold 56.9 million copies, and so Snake definitely deserves this rank as the face of the series. When I was doing my research though, I found out his name is David? Huh? What? That's like telling me Meta Knight's true name is George or something. I could have lived my whole life not knowing this. Here we got Donkey Kong, whose franchise had sold 58.1 million copies total. The main star of a masterful cinematic TV show and featured in one of the most iconic video games of all time. Psych! That was a test. Intel from David tells me that this was DK's grandfather, not DK. So no sales are counted here. However, DK has been killing it since Donkey Kong Country and remains as one of Nintendo's most iconic characters. Okay, so this one was the most surprising for me out of anyone in this list. At this spot in the tier list, we have Villager and Isabelle, who star in Animal Crossing New Horizon, which sold 32.6 million copies. Holy shit, fellas, is it just me, but I had no idea it sold this many. Like, I knew it was a hit and came under the perfect time during quarantine, but still, wow. Anyway, the series as a whole has sold 66.33 million sales, so legit, half of these just came now from New Horizons. And that's it for this group. And okay guys, I can't lie, I didn't know who Snake was before Smash. Is it just me? Same with Villager, I didn't know who these guys were. But now we got the 100 million mark, and I promise I have no more embarrassing takes because I know every character from here on out. And you should too, like these characters are a part of our culture at this point, there is no excuse. First on the list, we got Link, Ganon, and Zelda. Having been in every Legend of Zelda games, these guys are titans of the gaming industry, with their franchise having sold 113.37 million copies total. Out of their default skin representations though, Link has the most games sold, with Breath of the Wild being the best-selling game in the franchise, at 23.97 million copies sold. The skin Zelda has here is specifically from Link to the Past, which sold 4 million copies, but it's Zelda, dude, come on, her name is honestly probably more well known than Link's. And Ganon finally has the Ocarina of Time skin that sold 13.82 million copies. Now fellas, if this list were being ranked by individual games sold, this would be #1 by far. The game that has not only sold over 50 million copies, Not only over 100 million, not just over 150 million, but 200 million copies. We all know who it is at this point, but I'm a sucker for fanfares. It's Steve, baby! Minecraft is ridiculous, and on a whole other level, 200 million copies sold under this one individual game. Holy crap. While it's technically the only game in the franchise, it sold so many copies it's in the top 10 best-selling game franchises of all time. If you didn't know who Steve was before Smash, I don't know what rock you're living under. Next on the list, we got the Miis. Yup, these fuckers sold 82.9 million copies under Wii Sports, the most iconic game on Nintendo's most popular console of all time, as well as the 4th best-selling game of all time. You could argue that this earns the Miis some respect as a Smash character. This is still debatable. The Wii series, and yeah, that's the official name, is not referring to the console, has sold 202.5 million copies. Again, still debatable on the respect part. Pokemon Trainer and Mewtwo. While these fellas were all in Gen 1 like Jigs down there, they're all arguably a level more iconic than Jigglypuff, with Mewtwo having his own movie and being the OG legendary beast, and Charizard being the second most milked Pokemon of all time. This series overall has sold 373 million copies, and these fellas have been there since the beginning through every card, show, app, movies, both animated and live action ever since. This is also the most lucrative video game franchise of all time, having sold over 90 billion in its lifetime. And next, we have the characters that have been featured in over 500 million copies, who are in their own tier of this list. Luigi, Peach, and Bowser were all featured in Super Mario Bros. That sold 58 million copies. While Pokemon is the most lucrative, the Mario series as a whole is the best-selling video game franchise of all time, with 703 million copies sold. This is equal to the entire 95% of the roster sales combined. Mario Kart, Party, Odyssey, and more are all iconic games featuring these three, all giving them the glory. Also, the reason I'm giving these guys a franchise bonus specifically instead of, Bowser Jr. or Rosa and Greninja or Lucario for Pokemon is because Luigi, Bowser, and Peach were there from the first Super Mario game and have been a strong presence in every game ever since. While there's a game or two that they might not be included in here and there, they're synonymous with the Mario franchise at this point, and I thought it fair to give them that bonus. But it feels weird talking about these three without talking about the namesake of the franchise. But that's only because he's in a whole other level of gaming, along with a few others. But before we get into the God tier, we have an emergency tier I have to go over. In this mystery tier are characters who are very hard to rank due to legacy status or just unknown sales figures, basically. Simon was pretty tricky to add to this list. Castlevania is actually one of the most popular video game franchises of all time, with 20 million sales altogether. However, not all games feature Simon. In fact, he's a main character in only 2 games, while being a minor presence in other Castlevania games. Castlevania even got its own show right now. It doesn't feature Simon though. Simon's most popular game is Castlevania, which sold 1.56 million copies. And although he's basically the mascot of Konami, there are just straight up no sales figures I can go by. And so Shot in the Dark, if I were to rank him, I put him probably in the Samus tier of recognizable. Piranha Plant is such a weird character, oh my goodness. I love him, but I truly don't know where to rank him. It's not like he's PD Piranha, who, is a character and you can actually play as in other games. No, it's just the generic enemy number 4 in the Mario universe. You could argue that he's super recognizable, but he's not a character like Luigi or Daisy. He's just an asshole. And so for that, I put him in the mystery zone. If you are wondering where Terry goes, honestly, so am I. Could not find anything about Terry Bear online. Got desperate and asked all-knowing Reddit gods who said, lol, we don't know. Neo Geo doesn't release sales figures or copies sold, and honestly, I have never heard of Terry before Smash, but I also never heard of Snake before Smash, so who knows, maybe it's a huge franchise, but I don't think it is, right? So yeah, mystery zone for Terry because I have no clue. Robert is not a character in the video game, but is a product sold along the NES, and only the NES, for like 3 years. The NES sold 4 million copies, and so in theory, the max he could have sold was 4 million, but it's extremely doubtful he sold even over 1 million at this point. But I don't want to put him in a tier of shame down there either, because while I was doing research, I actually found out Rob has a super interesting backstory. Highly recommend checking it out. But after the video ends, of course. Alright fellas, and that's it for the mystery zone. Now, we move on to the big daddies. In this tier, these characters have undoubtedly become part of America's culture despite having all originated in Japan. Mario, Pikachu, Sonic, and Pac-Man are universally known whether you play their games or not. Pac-Man hasn't seen much glory lately, but is a video game icon and massively respected by boomers all over from his legendary arcade presence. Sonic has had his own cinematic live-action masterpiece, TV shows, animated movies. Yeah, Sonic basically represents the color blue in the gaming world with 144.9 million copies sold throughout its franchise, but ultimately a bigger reach overall throughout his presence. Mario and Pikachu have aged well into the modern gaming world, with their new games being massive events for Nintendo. I've talked about these guys' respective franchises before, but it cannot be overstated how much of a titan these two are in the video game world. Their most recent main entry games, Mario Odyssey and Pokemon Sword and Shield, each sold over 20 million copies. And combined, these two have sold over 1 billion copies with the respective franchises. Absolutely insane. If your friend didn't know who any of these four were before they bought Smash, except maybe Pac-Man, but show them Downtown first so they get it, then it's likely they just left under their rock for the first time in their life, and so make sure to give them sunglasses to not blind them instantly. So tell me fellas, how many characters did you recognize before Smash? Are you gamer as hell and knew most, or did only the top tiers here ring a bell? Leave a comment below telling me which ones did you notably not know before Smash. Because if I can admit how many I didn't know, so can you. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. See ya!